Hello, welcome to the Analyst Inside Cricket with me, Simon Hughes.
And I'm Simon Mann.
We're just about exactly halfway through the World T20, the T20 World Cup. And there's a few things that we know after that India-Pakistan game. The first thing we know is that India are a lot better than Pakistan at cricket. That is the umpteenth time that India have beaten Pakistan in that needle match between the two great countries, the two great nations. India winning out today by a comfortable 60-odd run margin. We know a couple of other things, Simon, don't we? We know that South Africa could have qualified after beating New Zealand, but not definitely. We do know, of course, India have qualified for the Super 8s. And I think we also know the West Indies have qualified. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. So we're moving towards the qualification stage now, knowing who is going to be through. Yeah, what do we know? We know that why did they bother? Why did they bother going to Colombo today? Well, we know why, because there's a lot of money at stake, but it was just a really ordinary performance from Pakistan. I thought, well, Ishan Kishan was excellent. We know what a devastating player he can be. And basically, I thought he won the match, really, for India within the first 6 or 7 overs of the game. 170 odd. Couldn't see Pakistan getting that. And then they fell over in the power play. And it was just a question of the margin of victory. And what that means now, Yoz, is we're in a bizarre situation where England's group, it probably won't be, but it could be if they do qualify, and they've got a bit of work to do as well. They could have Zimbabwe in it and the United States and New Zealand. But there's a lot that has to happen before that occurs. But Pakistan are not through yet. The United States have played their matches. Pakistan's net run rate is not very good. It's behind the USA. So if Pakistan were to lose to Namibia in their final game, then I make it the United States would qualify. That's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? Namibia have lost all their games so far. So there's still something for Pakistan to do in this competition. And there's still something for England to do in this competition as well. It's not cut and dried yet. I think we feel we know where the competition is going. The one group that really is still very, very live is that Zimbabwe, Australia, Sri Lanka group, which has got a lot to be decided after Zimbabwe upset Australia the other day.
Yeah, amazing, wasn't it? That really was a surprise. Although, when we picked our likely semi-finalists way back, we were not convinced that Australia were going to make it through to the final four, were we? And, their side, it looks sort of ravaged compared to the team that got to the, close to the final a couple of years ago. It's sort of, and obviously the team that got to the World Cup final, won the World Cup final in the 50-over format. It's a completely different side, and the bowling attack looks really quite fragile, and the batting just, hasn't fired. So it's quite interesting to see Australia's sort of slumping down the list there and not definitely going to qualify. Could not qualify. We'll talk about England and Scotland, which was a needle game, of course, and I'm talking cricket here, not rugby. They were both played on the same day, those two matches, weren't they? The rugby match and the cricket match. The cricket came first. England, I'd say, got through fairly confidently in the end, but one or two scares. We'll talk about that later. India-Pakistan today was like many India-Pakistan matches in the last couple of years. It was a disappointment, wasn't it? It was an anticlimax.
Yeah, they had that great game in Melbourne in the I'm trying to get the year right now, probably the 2022 World Cup. Anyway, the year England won it.
When Kohli hit those runs off the last over, yeah.
Some of those thrilling strokes. I can still see that shot in Melbourne where off the back foot he hit the ball over long on for six, and just a wonderful shot. Yeah, that was a brilliant game, but this was not. This was something of a procession, wasn't it? I saw the controversial, in inverted commas, spinner Tariq at the halfway stage said, "Yeah, we can win. We can definitely win this game. Really confident. We've got the batters." But I didn't believe him, and within 5 or 6 overs, it was just basically over, wasn't it? Again, it was just a question of how many India were going to win by. It's not you look at the Indian lineup; it's missing obviously some of their established names in the past. So you think, when push comes to shove in a really tight game, have they got that that old school experience, or will they crumble a bit as they nearly did against the United States? I mean, said that they're chock full of talent, aren't they? And that batting lineup's got a lot of dashes in it, and that bowling lineup has got enough craft in it as well. From what we've seen so far, I mean, South Africa, I think, have been very impressive. Although, of course, they nearly lost to Afghanistan the other day. They should have lost to Afghanistan the other day. So I mean, it's as the tournament progresses and the big head to heads come, it's going to be absolutely fascinating. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's been good competition. Not every game is compelling. Let's face it. Some games are quite one sided, but the benefit is, of course, in T20s they don't last very long. 50 over cricket, it can be quite painstaking. You're there for 8 hours. With T20, 3.5 hours, generally speaking, it's done, as indeed this game was today. It must have been very painstaking for Pakistan supporters to watch that. I mean, they were outnumbered in the crowd in Colombo, but I thought the crowd actually was magnificent, wasn't it? In terms of like it's sort of exuberant crowd, as you'd expect, and everyone sitting together, mixing together. The teams, the two captains didn't shake hands at the start. I mean, I don't know. What do we say about that? I mean, just move on, really. I mean, what's the point of adding anything to that? I mean, it's obviously disappointing. But they got the game done. Lots of money has been made.
150 million saved for the game in general, for the World Game. I mean, lessons for Pakistan. One thing I'd say is get some more left-handed batters in, because they only had one, I think, in the top 6. And India have got so many. And funnily enough, the guy that we all picked in our Fantasy 11, Abhishek Sharma, I don't think he's got a run in the tournament yet, has he? He's got 2 ducks, and I didn't think he played in one game. So, ironically, he hasn't fired. But you've got Ishan Kishan, you've got Tilak Varma. Down the order, you've got people like Shubman Dubey as well coming in and climbing into the spinners in the middle overs. And I mean, it's a fantastic lineup of hitters in that Indian side, a lot of whom are left-handed. I mean, another lesson for Pakistan is just stay in. Just don't throw your wickets away to Bumrah in the first couple of overs. There were some really dumb shots played in that first 3 or 4 overs, and suddenly they're 13 for 3. Babar Azam, as has often happened in the last couple of years, played a terrible shot against Axar Patel, and suddenly, Pakistan are 40 for 4. I mean, it was just no way back from there. You mentioned Usman Tariq, the so-called controversial bowler. I looked at his action today with a lot of interest, and I thought it was a really interesting bowler, actually. And I quite see why that there are certain people who've complained about his bowling. Usually it's batsmen, of course, who don't like the delay. Particularly, they don't like the delay in his delivery. He gets up to the stumps, and we'll have a look at, if you're watching this on video on YouTube, which you can do if you go to the Analyst YouTube channel. We'll play a couple of his book deliveries, and you can see that delay as he is about to release, and then he does send the ball down. And that seems to arouse as much comment as the fact that some people have said his arm flex is more than the legal 15 degrees in release. I'm almost certain it doesn't. Because he's got a defect in his arm and he can't straighten it properly, a bit like Murali used to have. And I'm sure that there isn't more than 15 degrees of flex in his deliveries. So that bit's fine. The delay in his bowling, well, there is a clause in Law 41, which you're going to read us, which sort of suggests that you mustn't, do things which could obviously deliberately distract the batsman. Paraphrase that law for us.
Well, there are 2 aspects to it. One is that the umpires should be the sole judge of fair and unfair play. That's 41(2), and then Law 41(5), deliberate distraction, deception, or obstruction of batter is unfair for any fielder, it says, willfully to attempt by word or action to distract, deceive, or obstruct either batter. It says here after the striker has received the ball. So I don't think it really covers the delay in bowling. I can't see anything in the unfair play law which suggests that there's anything untoward going on. What I would say about it is, I mean, I watched all this spell today, and actually, I think you want that variation in the game. You want something different. What's wrong with it? It should be celebrated. And look, it could be that the MCC will look at it and say that that delay where it just holds the ball there and then bowls is kind of against some sort of spirit of the law or the spirit of the game, that you shouldn't do that. But I can't get that worked up about it, actually.
No,
I
no.
remember Robert Croft used to do it, didn't he?
Mm.
Robert Croft in well, I think in white ball matches from memory, but possibly in red ball games as well. When you're struggling, trying to look to deceive the batter, he would just hold himself for a moment and then deliver the ball. Then you get other batters, other bowlers who bowl from different lengths away from the batter. I mean, Mark Watt, the Scotland bowler, would bowl from a long way back, say.
Hmm.
Um, I think
Karen
that,
Pollard was another one, actually. Karen Pollard used to bowl the odd 23-yarder as well. I mean, with this delay, what Kevin Peterson has written on social media is that the delay gives him an unfair advantage in being able to tell what the batsman might be doing. Well, I don't know what Kevin Peterson's on, but I totally disagree. It's very difficult for a bowler to change much in that short time span. It'll probably be half a second or a second. It's very difficult to change much in what you bowl. You can't change your grip. You might be able to change your trajectory slightly if you see the batsman doing something, but that's the case anyway. When you run up to bowl, you quite often do see a batsman start to move down the wicket, and so you can sort of adjust very slightly. But I don't think this delay allows him to do anything untoward. What was interesting about the way that the Indians played him was they didn't run up the pitch to him. And I suppose that is partly because of that delay. It just slightly disrupts a batsman's rhythm. Normally, when you see a bowler running into bowl, you see as he does his gather, that's when if you want to come down the wicket, you're going to start to do that. And because his gather is quite a long way before he actually releases the ball, it's difficult to time your run down the wicket. But I think that's an interesting challenge for batsmen, and batsmen have got it all their own way, especially in white ball cricket anyway. So to allow a bowler a bit of leeway here, it's a bit like in penalty shootouts, isn't it? When a penalty taker runs in and then just stops briefly and then kicks the ball, and I think there is a sort of a limit on how long you can delay, and sometimes referees have made the penalty taker take it again. But in this case, I think it's fine. And what is also nice about his bowling is that he's got about four different deliveries. He's got a leg break and a googly bowled with a sort of higher arm, and then a leg break and a googly bowl with a lower arm. One other commentator said, I don't know how he could bowl a quicker ball when he stops like that. Well, he does. He does bowl a quicker ball, and it was at 65 miles an hour today with that pause and then, firing it in. So he's got a lot of versatility and good figures today. 4 overs, 1 for 24. He got the wicket of Suryakumar Yadav, who couldn't quite figure out how to play him from down the wicket, so mostly played him off the back foot. And it just posed a different challenge to the Indian batsman. It kept it interesting.
yeah, I couldn't get worked up about it at all. But here's a question though: would you want every bowler bowling like that? Imagine, you go to a T20 competition and you've got, 5, 6 man attack for every team, and 4 of the bowlers were doing that the whole time. Would you want that in the game?
Well, it wouldn't be I don't think it'd be a problem, actually. Why does it matter?
I suppose because the way cricket's played, or where it's developed in the modern times. I know you used to have underarm bowling, all that sort of thing, and was it lob bowling? And it has developed. Your expectation of the game is that you run in and bowl, and as you gather, you come in and bowl, and the arm comes down. You don't hold the arm for a second and then delay. If everyone was doing that, would that be good for the game? And then perhaps the MCC might.
Well, look, everybody, I mean, we've had this argument about batsmen, haven't we? Should they be allowed to change position at the crease as they do? And, when the switch it first came in, which of course was one of the things that Kevin Peterson pioneered, there was a lot of debate about should the batsman change position before the bowler's released. Well, there is a law now which says he mustn't change his position until the bowler's in his delivery swing. Otherwise, he becomes a right-hander, becomes a left-hander. But once the bowler's in his delivery swing, in other words, gathering to bowl the ball, then you can change position, and nobody's complained about that anymore. Everybody does it now. So I don't see any problem with the bowler doing a sort of similar thing, which is what this is.
Yeah, I think it adds to the variety of the game, personally. I mean, people, look at people like Malinga when he was in the game. People say, "Oh, that should be outlawed as well." That doesn't look right. His arm at, basically sort of horizontal. And he was just a fabulous bowler, and a quirk in the game, and something different for batters. I mean, look, he had good figures today, but it didn't make any difference to the outcome of the game, did it? India won comfortably by 61 runs. What do you think, Ishan Kishan such a dangerous player, yours?
Well, I think fast hands, and he gets low, doesn't he? I mean, he played a lot of sort of sweep shots today. He destroyed Abra Ahmed, the leg spinner from Pakistan, with some big slog sweeps over deep mid wicket. And he also played. I listened to his post-match interview. Actually, he said he's been working on his offside game more, and flashing it through the offside. But he's just a very nimble, fast-moving player with lots of different shots, and he's the second leading run scorer in the tournament now. So you picked him in your fantasy team. I sadly didn't. So you're doing well there, although you're not quite up with me in other areas. But we'll come to that maybe later in the tournament. But I just think he's a busy player. He's got that diminutive kind of stature which gets him around the crease very quickly. Obviously, he's a keeper as well. He's another one who's a wicket keeper batsman, isn't it? It's amazing how many of those keepers become dynamic batsmen. And I don't know, he's just got so many shots, so much experience. Very good against spin, isn't he? Absolutely devastating.
I must have got loads of points today, Oz. I mean, he made 77, so I get a point for every run. And also, he was player of the match as well, so I get a few extra points for that.
No, you don't. There's no such thing as, oh, actually, yeah, you're right. I've forgotten that one, actually. Yeah, you're right. You do get some extra points for player of the match, actually. Quite right. Sorry, I forgot that.
Well,
yeah, okay. You're getting up the table then.
Make sure you add them, yours. I'll be checking your homework. Don't you worry, to make sure you got it absolutely right.
Okay, Dad.
Tournament. You were ahead. Well, a couple of days ago. Tournament moves on quick, and I did say to you, you've still got 3 weeks to go yet. So and I mean the thing is, we've all picked players, and some of them won't make it through. So I picked Rashid Khan, for example, and I also picked Majid, and he's not going to make it through, so he's going to be cut off. I tell you, who I also picked as well was Joss Butler and Phil Salt. And England are struggling, but Salt made a few runs against West Indies the other day. We'll come on to England in just a moment. I mean, can we look beyond India to win this competition? We started off saying, I mean, my four picks were India, South Africa, England, and Afghanistan for the semi-finals. I'm really not so convinced by England at the moment, although their Super 8 group might be reasonably favourable because it's more likely to be. I said it could be United States and Zimbabwe. It's probably more likely to be Sri Lanka, Pakistan, New Zealand, for which you'd think they have a reasonable chance of making the semi-finals in that group, which is one of the reasons I picked them. But just going back to India. Is it India against South Africa for this title, do you think?
Well, I think it is. And I think, I mean, obviously, as you pointed out, earlier on in this show, that, T20 does even up the odds a bit, and somebody can have an incredible day out and win a match for an unlikely team. And India did struggle in that match against the USA, didn't they? Although, in the end, their bowlers prevailed. And I think that's the key to their team, is their bowling attack. It's just got everything covered. I mean, Bumrah today was bowling, swinging it both ways. Nobody else seems to swing the new ball, do they, in white ball cricket? But he seems to manage to swing it, and he's swinging it both ways. And he's got all those other kind of variations as well. Hardik Pandya as a support act with the new ball is also excellent. So they've got those two banker seamers, and then all those spinners, all of whom are posing slightly different problems, all of them very accurate, all of them, well, Kuldeep Yadav, I suppose, is less accurate, but he's got all that mystery. So, they've got a wonderful, in the end, it became like a benefit match today, didn't it? Because they had all sorts of different people. Tilak Varma was lobbing them up and taking catches on the boundary, and they were almost taking the piss out of Pakistan in the end, and their strength is so considerable that they can afford to leave people like Shubman Gill out of their T20 side, and Yashasvi Jai as well, and others. So somebody's got to catch them on a bad day. I suppose the one thing you'd hope for in this tournament is the pressure. is that the pressure builds up, and in a semi-final somewhere in India, where all the expectation is covered all over all the newspapers and TV stations, and they buckle under the pressure. That's the only thing you can hope for, really, because from a talent point of view, they're unbeatable.
Before the break, Yoz, you were talking about India's all-round talent and some of the players they've left out. It does remind me of the mid 1990s, 94-5 England's tour of Australia, where they played a white ball series, or was it white ball then? It might have been still in red ball, but anyway, one-day series involving Zimbabwe and Australia A. The organisers in Australia felt that Zimbabwe weren't strong enough to make it, really competitive competition, just the three teams, England, Australia and Zimbabwe. So they put Australia A in. And you do wonder whether if India A played in this T20 World Cup, whether they would also be threatening to get through to the semi-finals, because I mean they do have so many good players. I mean, look, a few countries have some good players as well. I mean, you could perhaps argue that, I don't know, South Africa and England and Australia leaving some good white ball players out as well. But India just seems so chock full of talent. I mean, Shubman Gill, a couple of years ago in the IPL, I mean, he plays some of the best white ball innings I've ever seen. I mean, he's a fabulous player, isn't he? And he can't get in this team. It is extraordinary, really, the amount of good players that they've got, and they seem to have, so many. You watch the IPL, and you think, well, he's a good spinner. He's a good spinner. He's a good spinner. He's a good spinner. You think in England, I think, well, could we have a couple of those in our test team, or even in our white ball team, because they seem to have so much all round qualities. Anyway, they might not win it, but I'd be, you'd be surprised if they don't go very close. You're right. In a one-off match, semi-final, final. It's happened in the 50 over World Cup in Ahmedabad last time. They come up unstuck against a very, very good Australian performance. That brilliant Travis Head 100. Let's move on to England. They've still got some work to do to qualify. They're playing Italy tomorrow. Italy have to win. They have to win and also improve their net run rate against England. So their margin of victory has to be not more, has to be more than just, say, winning the game 1 run or 2 runs or something like that. And so the group is still a bit open, and Scotland have got an opportunity as well. But England, if they beat Italy, that's it. They're through. They've qualified. So you said earlier about England's performance that you thought it was. What would you give it out of 10? What would you give England's performance out of 10 against Scotland?
I think it was a bit scrappy. I'd give them 5 or 6, maybe. The openers, as you said, Sultan, Butler haven't convinced really. Butler looks a little bit off. He's probably going to smack 100 in one of these games, maybe Italy, but I don't know. He's just not. He doesn't look quite as convincing and certain in his shot making as he has done when he's at his best. So Butler's a bit of a concern. I thought the batting after that was pretty good. I mean, Bethel played well. He got done in the end by a bit of a good delivery, but he played. Oh no, he was caught short fine leg, wasn't he? I was thinking of the West Indies game. He was caught short fine leg. So was Harry Brook. Played a fairly poor shot initially. Harry Brook got out early, but Bethel played well. Obviously, Banton came in and took Mark Watt apart. Hit 3 sixes in his first 3 legal deliveries off Mark Watt, the left-arm spinner, who was sort of Scotland's banker. And it was finished off a bit by Will Jacks at the end as well. So there was a good couple of partnerships there for England in the middle. Bowling wise, Archer was better, wasn't he? But then he was bowling against Scotland. But there's some decent players in that Scottish side. So yeah, I thought Archer was pretty good. Rashid was good. Dawson didn't quite get it right. The support bowling wasn't particularly good, but Archer was good and Rashid was good, so that's encouraging. So, yeah, 6.5 out of 10, I'd say. England's fielding was solid, as it normally is. They took all their catches. But it's funny, Scotland seemed to have a habit of hitting everything straight down a player's throat. I mean, forgivably, because they were kind of called up at the last minute to this tournament, so they haven't really had much time to prepare. So they did pretty well, considering, didn't they?
Yeah, I thought it was quite a strange game, actually, because the pitch looked to have a bit of pace in it, and the outfield was lightning fast. And you thought, a really decent score was on the cards. But as it turned out, 152 played 155 for 5 off 18.2 overs. There was actually, when I was watching it, there was never a moment where I thought, when England were batting, that they were going to lose the game. I thought they were 150. That was perfectly within their capabilities. Okay, they lost a couple of early wickets, and Brook was out. But I just thought, on this surface, this outfield, with the quality that England have in their middle lower order, someone should be able to come in and nail a couple of sixes and turn the game. As it was Tom Banton. So when I did fear for England though was when they were bowling, when that partnership was going on between Bruce and Berrington, they which took them to 113 for 3 in the 13th over. And I thought if Scotland made 200 or close on 200 as the West Indies did in that match against England at Mumbai, then that will extend England. 150, I thought, was never going to test them, or shouldn't test them, not on that service of that outfield. But 190, 195, which Scotland were threatening at one point, then I thought, wow, yeah, they really could be under pressure, because it's also that thing, isn't it, about you're playing a game that everyone expects you to win. And they had that with Nepal as well, and they struggled to deal with the pressure. You're just looking at the faces of the England fielders as Nepal were getting closer. You could see the strain, and I just sort of sense that a little bit with the Scotland batting effort. But then England took 2 quick wickets. They got rid of Berrington, they got rid of Bruce, and completely transformed the game. And Scotland collapsing 113 for 3 to 152 all out. And I thought once that had happened, I couldn't see England not chasing, 153 to win the match, even though they lost a couple of early wickets.
And I think that, the pitch was good, and I think that England are better chasing. I think I would prefer them to chase.
Really?
I've got more confidence in the batters down the order. I mean, Sam Curran to me he's an absolute gem of a cricketer, isn't he? I mean, all right, his bowling does go for miles occasionally, but as I've often said, he hits the ball so cleanly and comes in and plays, key little cameos at number 6. Not an easy place to bat. I mean, England have tried to almost cement him in, I think, at that number 6 spot. And you've got to be quite adaptable at number 6, because you might come in with only 4 balls left of the innings, or you might come in when you're 40 for 4. So you've got to be quite good at kind of, assessing the game and the pitch and the situation. But he just hits the ball so cleanly. And he's in all these games England have played, he's had an impact either with bat or ball. Here, he got some key runs when just England were just sort of stumbling a little bit. He helped knock the runs off with Banton, and I don't know. I don't trust England with the ball in defending a total unless it's an absolutely massive total. That's why I sort of prefer them to chase, I think.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? That this batting lineup, if they are given some freedom to set, could set a really big score. And I just wonder how well they deal with the pressure. So they didn't deal with the pressure particularly well in Mumbai the other evening. I think it sort of got to them. They didn't quite know how to chase it. And West Indies bowled well, spun the ball. This game, because the target wasn't so great, they were able to win the match and win it reasonably comfortably. If you win a T20 match by 5 wickets with 11 balls to spare, it's kind of like shake hands, thanks for coming, isn't it? Really, that's reasonably comfortable. I know there's been a bit of chat afterwards about England unconvincing and Harry Brook's shot, which actually wasn't very good, I didn't think. But they still won the game with a bit to spare, really. And a lot of T20 games go to 18th over, 19th over, sometimes the final over, isn't it? But it's about winning the game, and that's what they did. But I mean, they do look a bit unconvincing, and I think their bowling looks hittable. I think that's the thing. So any team coming up against them in the Super 8s or possibly a semi-final, you feel you could take them down. And they're going to have to, all of them on the day, it's one of those things where they're all going to have really good days out, I think, for England to win, say, a big match like a semi-final. But I mean, first things first, they've got to get there. Although they are, to me, it looks as though they might be in a slightly weaker side of the Super 8 draw because of the way the competition is figured. So they might have got a bit lucky. I mean, that doesn't guarantee anything. But, you wouldn't want to be in India's group. You wouldn't want to be in South Africa's group, which is going to happen. And West Indies are in that other section as well. and then Australia. It could well be Australia. Anyway, we'll see how it pans out. But yeah, England to me don't look likely winners at the moment. They don't look very sure of themselves. They don't look very confident. I don't think they don't seem to have that kind of real winner's belief that you sometimes get. You feel South Africa might have it. You feel India might have it. And I mean, okay, New Zealand lost to South Africa yesterday, but they've got a bit of that about them. New Zealand, you watch them play and you feel as if they know what they're doing. Whereas with England, there's a bit of uncertainty there. There's like lack of belief, confidence, something like that. It's intangible.
Yeah. So just looking ahead, who do we think for the world game? Who do we think we prefer to get through from that group, that first group, India, Pakistan, and you said USA have quite a chance of getting through instead of Pakistan?
Well, they have a
Do you think?
chance. They have a chance, Yoz, if
Yeah. If
Pakistan
don't beat,
Namibia.
Namibia or whatever. I mean, do you think that the world game, I know that this goes back to something I was talking about in the last podcast, that the emerging force in cricket from a financial point of view is the USA. And for them to get to certainly into the Super 8s at least, could that be good for the game? I mean, the trouble is the Indian-Pakistan games just seem to cause so much controversy and uncertainty, even though they do raise a lot of money. Are we kind of, do you think we're a bit over India-Pakistan now?
Over it in what sense?
I don't know, over it in the kind of the constant fractiousness of the relationship, which causes uncertainty, and therefore, there's so much invested in it from a financial point of view, and the doctoring of the groups to ensure that there is a match between India and Pakistan. I don't know. I think it sort of slightly devalues the game in a way, because it is such as a rigged idea.
Yeah. Well, the harsh truth is that the economics of the world game demand it, which is not a great situation to be in, which is why all that happened in the lead up was really bad for the game. It really brings into sharp focus the fact that this one game has to happen, otherwise the game is financially knackered. I mean, it just can't be right for the game that it's so skewed that way. I don't know what the solution is. Is there a solution?
Well, the solution is get the USA more involved. I mean, you're never going to raise the same kind of broadcast rights at the moment from a match against the USA, but in time, because there's a huge Asian diaspora in the USA, so they have got a potentially quite big TV and even crowd audience for cricket. I mean, the TV is obviously the key to it. They have got potentially about a 40 million audience there for cricket, but it has to be tapped into on the back of the USA team performing well, and they're starting to kind of emerge, I think.
I've been impressed with the cricket I've seen from the USA actually in this World Cup. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is, the players that are playing are players largely speaking born in India, Pakistan, who've emigrated to Australia. There's one player who was born there, went back to live in India, has gone back to the United States. I think it's going to take a while before that takes over from the traditional rivalries.
Yeah, it is, but it is changing, isn't it? Because in sort of past years, they've had more players that were, or quite a number of players that were from the Caribbean or from South Africa who'd emigrated to the USA. But now you feel there's more of an Asian dominance. And obviously from that community, there's potential, more talent, I would say, or at least more interesting talent, perhaps, to work with and possibly, build a future with.
Well, what you've got to happen for that to happen, from the scenario you're talking about, you've got to have the USA starting to beat the major nations regularly, haven't you, in T20 World Cups? But when that starts to happen, if they did play India in, say, the next T20 World Cup and then beat them, and that would, or beat England or whatever, or beat Australia, then the world would sit up and take notice. Then that game would become of greater commercial value because it would be really competitive. I think that's the thing. When you watch the game, when the United States played India in that opening weekend of the competition, it was seen at the time that if USA had won, I felt this as well. If USA had won, it would be like one of the biggest shocks in the history of world sport. For India to be beaten in their home country, or albeit a T20 match, which does stack it a bit more in favour of the lesser side. But so that's how we saw it. What it's got to be is when India play against the United States, it's a massive head-to-head game. We don't know who's going to win. There's that huge jeopardy. It's a 50-50 game. When you get to that stage, then the game, the TV rights have huge value, don't they? Because it's a real proper competition. Also, also with this, as well as we know, I think from Tim Wigmore's book about the history of Test cricket. I mean, the big mistake with the USA was made back in about the 1900s, wasn't it? When they were kind of excluded from the Imperial Cricket Conference. That when they weren't sort of welcomed in, and it was kept to the the old sort of the Commonwealth as it is now, and so, same with Canada as well, when the game could have developed there, but then baseball took over, and so cricket missed its opportunity.
There is a great podcast, actually, when I've forgotten the name of it, but I'll try and find it, put it on the podcast notes, about where American cricket, USA cricket took a dive. And it was sort of, they were a strong side in the 1850s. And of course, they played the first ever international against Canada. Then in about the 1860s, apparently one of the decisive moments was the American Civil War, when a lot of the guys who liked cricket were on the front line, and they were knocking around in rough ground and wanted to do some sport. And the ground was so rough, they couldn't play cricket. So they ended up playing, the ball to hand game, or the ball to bat game, baseball, because it didn't have to land on the ground. And suddenly sort of baseball had its moment of popularity related to the Civil War. And from then on, it took off and cricket declined. I mean, there's many other reasons, but that apparently was a sort of pivotal moment.
Yeah. You're not making that up, yours, eh?
I'm not making it up, actually. It's in a podcast which Ed Smith was on quite recently. I'll look it up and post it, because it's an interesting story.
Yeah. Well, no, you're right. If it's true, which I'm sure it is, it does sound interesting. Kind of like must needs, basically. The sort of physical geography of the time dictating what happened. Anyway, that's my thoughts on United States. They have looked good. They've got some good cricketers in that team. Who knows? I mean, from here they could qualify. It needs a massive favour from Namibia, and a really bad day out from Pakistan for Pakistan not to qualify. But so there we go. We've had the first 9 days of competition in this T20 World Cup. It's been good. It's been some great games, some good talking points, some poor matches, and some the odd plenty of mistakes as well. You feel it's going to get even better from here, because you're going to have, as the week progresses, well into next week, you're going to have the real big head-to-head matches. In theory, every game really counting, rather than being able to drop a game. And then as we move towards the semi-finals and the final, but work for England to do against Italy. Who'd have thought it? England have to beat Italy to qualify for the Super 8s. That sort of feels like a football World Cup thing. Although, of course, Italy haven't been doing that well in qualifying for football World Cups of late. They've not qualified for the last two. I think they still have to go through the playoffs to get through to this one as well, which is extraordinary when you think they are, past World Cup winners and a remarkable football power and culture. I think, look, the Italian side is made up of a lot of players from, with Italian passports from outside the country, and a couple of great players. The Mosca brothers helped them win their last game. Because this last time we were talking about Nepal, weren't we? The threat from Nepal. And suddenly they've just completely fallen away, almost as if the England game just took so much out of them. And then since then, they played pretty poorly, beaten by, hammered by the West Indies, and then hammered by Italy as well.
And I suppose it's the pressure of knockout type cricket, which is not knockout exactly, but it's international cricket. There's pressure every game. It's telling on players who are not experienced in it and are not regular competitors on this level of the sport. It's tough, and in the end, it takes its toll if you're not ready and used to it.
Yeah. Okay, so a big day for England tomorrow and Italy. Also for Australia, if they're to try and keep themselves alive in the competition, they take on Sri Lanka in Pallekele. So everyone's decamping from Colombo to go up to Pallekele for that game. Suddenly a really big game in this group stage of the T20 World Cup. That's just about it, Yoz.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a few days' time to review more of the T20 World Cup action. On go India and Pakistan away to lick their wounds after another defeat. But at least the game is millions and millions of pounds richer tonight. Thanks for listening. Goodbye for now.